Hi, I'm Amory, and I am here with the AMERIE'S book club selection for the month of February, which is The Hard Road Out, One Woman's Escape from North Korea by Jihyun Park, or Park Jihyun, and Seh-Lynn Chai, or Chai Seh-Lynn. First of all, I am sitting down here today. I think I'm going to begin sitting down again. I used to do my videos sitting down a lot because there's just something cozy about just sitting. Like, I just feel like we're here, you know, and that's where I want to be. We feel like we know so much about North Korea, what we've gathered from the news, but this book is really interesting because it gives us an account from someone who escaped North Korea, not once, but twice. I don't want to tell you everything that happened, but her journey was harrowing. So you see what it's like to live in North Korea as a woman, what they experience, the constant terror and surveillance that they are under. And it's not just surveillance by the government, because the way the way society is set up is a way in which citizens then become the spies for the government because they're rewarded or also brainwashed into believing what the government wants them to believe. So they see each other with so much suspicion. You have to be careful speaking in your own home because if you're overheard, you could be reported. You may already know from the tidbits you've picked up on the news, over the years, how essentially the leader or the father of the country is seen almost like a god. So the portrait must hang in the home and in a place of honor, must be cleaned. It's just, even your tears are surveilled. So it's like you don't cry for family members or for yourself, but all the tears for the quote-unquote dear leader or dear father. You don't celebrate birthdays, but you do celebrate the leader's birthday. So there are many ways in which people are brainwashed into believing exactly what the state wants them to believe. A lot of this is also accomplished by cutting them off from the rest of the world. They know only what they're told. Even traveling between towns, you have to have permission to do such things. You have to have permission to do everything, even the job that you have. Everything is tightly controlled and again surveilled. But this book isn't just what it's like to live in North Korea and Jihyun's escape. Not once, but again twice. Her hardships, being a woman, having a baby, being pregnant, trafficking. There's so much that happens in her life. She had to live through so many horrible things, but she persevered. But this book is also about Koreans and how Koreans are separated. Not just the government, not just the state, the boundaries, the nations, but how North Koreans and South Koreans are separated because of the suspicions that they have for each other, because of what they learn about the other side. I grew up, I'm Korean as well. Many of you already know that my mom is Korean. Hearing certain stories about North Korea, family members extended family members in the past who may or may not have gotten kidnapped, disappeared, just all kinds of things. I think many Koreans have this, this situation in which their family or their extended family or their ancestors were affected directly by the situation. The division of North and South Korea. And that's where Seh-Lynn comes in. Seh-Lynn didn't just collaborate with Jihyun on the story. Seh-Lynn helps to tell Jihyun's story, but Seh-Lynn is South Korean. So she is exploring through this work what her own perceptions of North Korea were, what they have become, how they've changed. And she explores the idea that unification that we all pray for in the future isn't something that is just going to happen on a state level or can only happen on a state level. It has to first happen in intimate ways. It first must happen by the understanding and the acceptance and the reunification of Korea's people, both Northern and Southern. Many North Koreans and South Koreans grow up looking at one another with distrust, disdain. They are not usually in contact. It's just what you hear about the other group. And as enemies. As for me, I never held that because I'm also American, and although I lived in many different places, I grew up in America. My mother's South Korean. I've heard stories. My mother never really talks about that either. That's another thing too. Koreans are just like notoriously quiet about things they don't want to discuss. So it's like almost impossible sometimes to hear family lore. And I think that's mentioned in the book too, that how tight-lipped culturally Koreans can be. But despite hearing those things, I never felt on a foundational level hatred or suspicion towards North Korea's people. North Koreans to me are just Koreans who live in a very bad situation, and it's the government. So for me, I felt really only sorrow for those who are stuck in North Korea. As I was reading the book, you see firsthand like how to break a person, how to break a society, how to break a group, separate them from their family, make the state everything. You also realize, this is a whole other thing I'm not going to go into in this video, but you also realize how vigilant we have to be, even in recognizing our own freedoms. How freedom is very precarious. Political and social ideology, these exist on spectrums. And so it's very easy, for instance, for freedom and we want the government out of our hair to be like almost like isolationist, and to not make the government do what it should be doing, which is taking care of its citizens. On the other hand, it's easy to say the government should take care of its citizens. The government has a responsibility. And that can become, the government is way too involved in our lives. The government and state-sanctioned information becomes the end-all, be-all, and any dissent is crushed. We have to be very vigilant about that. Just as we're reading about two women who connect, North Korean woman and a South Korean woman, who connect and find commonality in what it is to be Korean, what it is to be a woman, what it is to be a human being. We must also find commonality in people who think differently than ourselves in every way imaginable. Not just their experiences in life, but where they are politically, socially, regarding religion or the lack of religion, or spirituality, the lack of spirituality. It is so important to hear other views, to read about different viewpoints, to really experience what it's like to be someone else. I think we would find that we have so much more in common than we think, and that goes across the board. The Hard Road Out is a fascinating read. Both Jihyun Park and Seh-Lynn Chai are very accomplished women. They have lived around the world, experienced so much of the world. Jihyun has entered politics in the UK as a member of the Conservative Party. She ended up in Britain after escaping North Korea, living for a time in China, experiencing the horrors, what it was like to be someone who was seeking asylum and being forced underground, really. And of course, when people are forced underground, they fall victim to human trafficking and all these other things, which you will read about in the book. Seh-Lynn has recently joined the Korean government as advisor for the Committee of Peaceful Reunification. Both women are doing so much great work in coming together to write this story, sharing Jihyun's story, sharing Seh-Lynn's experience and her perspective as a South Korean woman. And I think they're really right regarding reunification not only being something that is going to be done on this political level, the state level, between two nations. It's so weird for me to even say two nations. I know it's technically two nations, but it's still Korea. There is this artificial separation. But then of course we can think, well, what are all nation states but false or artificial lines, boundaries between one people, human beings? That's a whole other video and probably several videos. They've both done so much, and I think it's really important because I never realized there was so much work to be done regarding just the population, just civilians, just North Koreans and South Koreans as a people. The distrust, the amount of anger, hurt that existed. I don't think I really understood that. I really thought that these things were on a more of a state level and a political level, a military level. I had no idea that it ran so deeply on both sides. This book is so very important. Please join me and Jihyun Park and Seh-Lynn Chai as we speak at the end of the month. It's not going to be a live one. This is going to be a Zoom because we're going to need three panels, 3 boxes, so we can all be together. Do not miss our conversation. Follow along with the read, hashtag read with Amory, hashtag Amory's Book Club. Follow the IG at Amory's Book Club. Also follow my personal IG at Amory. That is where we will be chatting. I pray for reunification. I pray that Korea can be one nation again. I pray that, excuse me, the citizens of North Korea can find happiness and joy. You know, of course there's some happiness, of course there's joy. Humans always find a way. But the happiness and joy that they deserve, the way of life that they deserve, that the children deserve, This world is so big, there's so much to explore. We will live through wonderful things and horrible things, but each human being, I believe, has a right to live to our full potentials, to experience all that is offered to us. And we all have a right to live in a way that enables us to find our happiness, our joy, and to live lives of dignity. That, I think, is every human basic right. Please join us at the end of the month. I will see you soon. In the meantime, happy reading. I have like so many dog-eared pages. So many dog-eared pages. This was really, sometimes this was difficult, very difficult for me to read because Koreans have suffered a lot. You know, and I'm speaking specifically about North Korea, but I don't really make the distinction. I don't see it as two nations. Yes, they are divided. The countries are divided, you know, the border. And the people have experienced a lot of malnutrition. So there are changes, unfortunately. One people divided, and it's so unfair. It really breaks my heart. And I pray for reunification. And this is not to say that the way of the West is so perfect and is the best ever. There's so many issues. We can go on and on about everything, but I also think that that's what it is to be a human being. That's what it is to exist in human civilization. Nothing is going to be perfect, but we strive to find a better way. But while we are also looking at what we see wrong, it is very important to not be complacent and think that everything is great where we are too. And I don't care if you're on the left or if you're on the right or if you have no political affiliation. It's important to reposition yourself to see what you've always seen through new eyes or from at least a new angle.